My name is Margaret Bennett, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 73 years old, and for most of my life, I've known what it means to struggle. My husband passed away 15 years ago, leaving me with a small pension and a two-bedroom house that needed more repairs than I could afford. I raised 3 children in that house: David, Susan, and Michael, and I'd worked 2 jobs most of their lives to give them everything they needed. These days, my routine was simple. Wake up at 6, make my coffee, feed my cat Mr. Whiskers, and stretch my Social Security check as far as it would go. Every Tuesday, I'd walk down to Murphy's Corner store, just 3 blocks from my house, to buy my groceries. And every Tuesday, without fail, I'd buy a single lottery ticket. Just one. It was my little luxury, my $2 dream. The usual, "Maggie?" Tommy Murphy would ask, already reaching for the lottery slip. You know me. Tommy, same numbers I've been playing for 30 years. My wedding anniversary, my children's birthdays, and the number of the house where I grew up. 0714 to 3314 to 09. Those numbers were my life, printed on a flimsy piece of paper every single week. That particular Tuesday in October started like any other. The leaves were turning golden. There was a chill in the air, and my arthritis was acting up something fierce. I bought my ticket, tucked it into my purse, and forgot all about it as I struggled home with my groceries. Wednesday morning changed everything. I was sitting in my worn-out recliner, the one with the spring that poked through if you sat wrong, watching the morning news and eating my oatmeal. Mr. Whiskers was curled up on my lap, purring softly. The lottery numbers flashed across the screen, and out of habit, I reached for my purse to check my ticket. 7. I had that. 14. I had that too. 23. My hand started shaking. 3-1. My breath caught. 42. The oatmeal spoon clattered to the floor. 09. Time stopped. The world went silent except for the thundering of my own heartbeat. I checked the ticket again, and again, and again. All 6 numbers. Perfect matches. The news anchor's voice seemed to come from underwater. Single winner will take home an estimated $20 million after taxes. $20 million. I sat there for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, staring at that little piece of paper. $20 million. I could fix my roof. I could finally get that hip replacement my doctor had been recommending. I could stop choosing between medication and groceries. But more than that, and this thought filled my heart with a warmth I hadn't felt in years, I could help my children. David was drowning in debt from his failed restaurant. Susan was struggling to pay for her daughter's college. Michael had been living paycheck to paycheck his entire adult life. I could save them. I could save all of us. The tears came then, hot and fast, streaming down my wrinkled cheeks. Mr. Whiskers meowed in concern, and I hugged him close, laughing and crying at the same time. We did it. Mr. Whiskers, I whispered. We actually did it. I called David first. He was my oldest, the one who used to bring me wildflowers when he was little and tell me I was the prettiest mom in the world. David, honey, can you come over? Bring Susan and Michael. I have something important to tell you all. Mom, I'm really busy at work, please. David, it's urgent, life-changing. Something in my voice must have convinced him because 2 hours later, all 3 of my children were sitting in my tiny living room, looking at me with expressions ranging from concern to impatience. What's going on, Mom? Susan asked, checking her phone. I had to cancel a client meeting for this. I took a deep breath and held up the lottery ticket. I won. I won the lottery. $20 million. The silence that followed was deafening. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me, then at the ticket, then back at me. Is this a joke? Michael finally asked. No joke, baby. I checked it 10 times. I even called the lottery commission. It's real. What happened next was like watching a switch flip. David's face, which had been skeptical and annoyed, suddenly broke into the biggest smile I'd seen from him in years. He jumped up and pulled me into a crushing hug. Mom, oh my God, Mom, this is incredible. You deserve this. You really do. Susan was crying, actually crying, as she wrapped her arms around both of us. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. Mom, this is a miracle. Michael joined the group hug, and for a moment, just one perfect, shining moment, I felt like I had my children back. The children who used to fight over who got to sit next to me at dinner. The children who made me cards on Mother's Day with crayons and glitter. We need to celebrate, David announced. Let me take you out to dinner. The nicest restaurant in town. Hell, the nicest restaurant in the state. Oh, Mom, you have to come stay with me while you figure things out, Susan insisted. My house is bigger, and you shouldn't be alone right now. I'll help you find a financial advisor. Michael offered. We need to make sure this money is protected. You need someone looking out for you. They were so attentive, so caring, so present. David called me 3 times that evening just to check in. Susan sent me a long text about how much she loved me and how proud Dad would be. Michael showed up the next morning with breakfast and fresh flowers. For the first time in 15 years, since my husband died, I didn't feel alone. I should have known it was too good to be true. The first request came from David just 3 days after I'd claimed the prize. We were having coffee in my kitchen. He'd been stopping by every morning, which I'd found touching when he cleared his throat awkwardly. Mom, I've been thinking. You know the restaurant failed because I didn't have enough capital, right? But I've learned so much, and with proper funding, I know I could make it work. I was thinking maybe you could invest in a new place. I've already got plans drawn up. It would only be about $500,000 to get started. $500,000. He said it so casually, like he was asking to borrow $20 for gas. That's a lot of money. David, I know, but think of it as an investment. You'd be a partner. We'd do this together, and I'd pay you back, of course, with interest. I could see the desperation in his eyes. The hope. He was my son. How could I say no? Let me think about it, honey. His smile tightened just slightly. Sure, Mom. Of course. Take your time. But he brought it up again the next day, and the day after that. Each time with more urgency, more pressure. Susan's request came in the form of tears. She showed up at my door one evening, mascara running down her face. It's Emma, she sobbed, talking about my granddaughter. She got into Harvard, Mom. Harvard. But even with financial aid, we're looking at $80,000 a year. I can't give her this opportunity. I just can't. Unless, she looked at me with those big, pleading eyes. I know you just got this money, and I know I have no right to ask, but you're her grandmother. Don't you want to see her succeed? Don't you want to give her the chances you couldn't give us? The guild trip worked. How could it not? I wrote Susan a check for $320,000 for years of Harvard tuition. Michael's demand, and it was a demand, not a request, came a week later. He wanted a house. His landlord was selling the property he was renting, and he'd found the perfect place for $450. Zero. I deserve this, Mom, he said, his voice hard. I've worked my whole life and have nothing to show for it. Susan got college money for Emma. David's getting his restaurant. What about me? Don't you love me as much as them? The words cut deep. Of course I loved him. I loved all my children equally, desperately, completely, so I gave him the money too. Within 3 weeks of winning the lottery, I'd given away over $1 million to my children, and instead of being grateful, they seemed angry, resentful, like whatever I gave wasn't enough. The phone calls changed. Instead of "How are you, Mom?" it became "When can you transfer the money?" Instead of "I love you," it was "Susan got more than me," or "David's restaurant better pay Mom back." They started fighting with each other. At a family dinner I'd organized hoping to bring everyone together, Michael accused Susan of manipulating me. Susan accused David of being a con artist. David accused them both of being ungrateful. And me? I sat at the head of the table, watching my children tear each other apart over money, and I felt something cold settle into my chest. This wasn't love. This wasn't family. This was greed. The first incident happened on a Tuesday morning, exactly 6 weeks after I'd won the lottery. I was having my coffee, the same coffee I drank every morning, when suddenly my stomach twisted violently. The room spun. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was violently sick. For 3 hours, I lay on the cold tile floor, too weak to move, too confused to understand what was happening. David found me there. He'd started using the spare key to check on me regularly. "Mom. Oh my God, Mom." He helped me up, got me water, acted concerned. But as I was recovering on the couch, I noticed something odd. He was pouring out my coffee, washing the mug with unusual thoroughness, wiping down the counter. "Probably just a stomach bug," he said lightly. "You should rest." But I hadn't had a stomach bug in 20 years. The next week, I nearly fell down the stairs. I'd walked those stairs thousands of times in the dark, knew every creak and worn spot. But suddenly, there was something slippery on the 3rd step from the top, something that sent my feet flying out from under me. I grabbed the railing just in time, my heart pounding as I realized I'd come within inches of breaking my neck. Susan was downstairs. She'd stopped by to visit. "Mom, are you okay?" I heard something. "The stairs. There's something slippery on them." She ran up with paper towels, wiping frantically. "Oh my gosh. Mr. Whiskers must have had an accident. Bad kitty. You could have hurt Grandma." But Mr. Whiskers never went on the stairs. He was too old, too arthritic. And what she was wiping up, it looked like cooking oil. The car incident was what finally shattered my denial. I was driving to the grocery store, the same route I'd driven for decades, when I pressed the brake pedal and felt it sink to the floor. Nothing, no resistance, no stopping power. I was approaching a red light, cars crossing the intersection, and my brakes were gone. Pure instinct made me yank the emergency brake and steer into a ditch. The airbag deployed, leaving me bruised and shaken but alive. The mechanic who towed my car called me that evening, "Mrs. Bennett. I found the problem. Your brake line was cut, not worn through cut. Clean slice. You need to call the police." This was deliberate. Someone had tried to kill me. I sat in my hospital bed. They'd kept me overnight for observation, and I thought about the coffee, the stairs, the car. I thought about my children's visits, their sudden attentiveness, their constant presence in my home. And I thought about something I'd overheard the week before. I'd been in my bedroom, about to come downstairs, when I heard David and Michael talking in the kitchen. "Just needs to be patient," Michael was saying. "Patient? I'm drowning here. The house payment is due, and I'm tapped out. We all are. But we can't push too hard, too fast. Just wait until." They'd stopped talking abruptly when I came down, their faces suddenly cheerful and innocent. Until what? I'd wondered at the time. Now, lying in that hospital bed, I understood. Until I was dead. I was discharged from the hospital the next morning. Susan picked me up, all concerned, fussing, and gentle touches. "You're coming to stay with me, Mom. I insist. You can't be alone after an accident like that." Every instinct screamed at me to refuse. But I smiled weakly and nodded. "That's sweet of you, honey. Let me just pack a bag. I'll help you," she said quickly. Too quickly. Back at my house, while Susan was helping me pack, I noticed her looking around, taking inventory. Her eyes lingered on my laptop, on my filing cabinet, on the safe I'd recently installed. "Where do you keep your important documents, Mom? Just in case something happens, I should know where everything is." "Oh, here and there," I said vaguely. "I'm not very organized." That night, staying in Susan's pristine guest room, I waited until the house was dark and quiet. Then I called someone I'd been afraid to call before. "Rosewood Law Firm. This is the emergency line. My name is Margaret Bennett. I won the lottery 2 months ago, and I believe my children are trying to kill me." The lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Owens, met me the next morning at a coffee shop far from my neighborhood. I'd told Susan I was going to the doctor. "Tell me everything," Patricia said, her pen poised over a legal pad. So I did. The food poisoning, the stairs, the brake line, the overheard conversations, the constant requests for money, the way my children's love had curdled into something dark and desperate. Patricia listened, her expression growing grimmer by the minute. "Mrs. Bennett, you're in danger. Real danger. But we can use that. We can catch them in the act with police present. But you'll need to be brave. Can you do that?" I thought of my husband, of the life we'd built together, of the children we'd raised with such hope and love. I thought of how they looked at me the day I announced my lottery win, not with love, but with calculation. "Yes," I said, "I can do that." Over the next week, I worked with Patricia and a detective named Rodriguez to set up a trap. First, I secretly transferred most of my lottery winnings into an irrevocable trust with a charity as the sole beneficiary. Then I created a will leaving small amounts to my children, but only if I died of natural causes. If I died under suspicious circumstances, they would get nothing, and the police would be immediately notified. Finally, I announced a family dinner at my house. "I want to discuss my estate planning with all of you," I told them. "It's time to make everything official." They all agreed to come. Of course they did. The dinner was set for a Saturday evening. Detective Rodriguez and 2 officers were positioned in an unmarked van outside. Patricia was in my bedroom with recording equipment, and I was in my kitchen, preparing a meal for my children. Knowing it might be my last, they arrived within minutes of each other, all 3 of them, dressed nicely and wearing practiced smiles. "Something smells wonderful, Mom," David said, kissing my cheek. I flinched, and he noticed. His eyes narrowed slightly. We made small talk through dinner, though I barely ate. I kept my wine glass close, never letting it out of my sight. I noticed Michael watching me, noticed Susan's hand hovering near my water glass when she thought I wasn't looking. After dessert, I stood up. "I want to thank you all for coming. I've been doing a lot of thinking since the accident." "Accident," Michael repeated, something ugly flickering across his face. "Yes, the accident with my brakes. The mechanic said the line was cut, but I'm sure it was just wear and tear." I let the words hang there, watching their reactions. David and Susan exchanged a quick glance. Michael's jaw tightened. "Anyway," I continued, "I've decided to revise my will. I'm leaving everything to us, right?" Susan interrupted. "I mean, we're your children. Who else would you leave it to?" "Well, that's what I wanted to discuss. You see, I've been thinking about charity. There's an orphanage across town that. An orphanage? David stood up abruptly. You're leaving our inheritance to strangers? It's not your inheritance, David. It's my money. The hell it is. Michael was on his feet now too. We're your family. We deserve that money. Deserve it? After poisoning my coffee? After oiling my stairs? After cutting my brake line? The silence that followed was absolute. 3 pairs of eyes stared at me, and I watched the mask slip away. No more fake smiles. No more pretended love. Just naked greed and hatred. You can't prove anything, Susan said coldly. Can't I? I had the coffee analyzed. They found traces of rat poison. The stairs were photographed before you cleaned them. And the mechanic's report on the brake line is very detailed. David moved toward me, and there was something terrifying in his expression. Then I guess we'll have to make sure you don't share those reports with anyone. I already have. I said quietly. I've shared them with the police. As if on cue, the front door burst open. Detective Rodriguez and his officers flooded in, guns drawn. Nobody move. Hands where I can see them. What followed was chaos. David tried to run and was tackled in the hallway. Susan started screaming about how I was a senile old woman who didn't know what she was saying. Michael just stood there, his face twisted with rage. I loved you, I told them as the officers cuffed their hands. I would have given you anything, but it was never enough, was it? You didn't want some of the money. You wanted all of it. And you wanted me dead. Susan looked at me with pure venom. You're just a bitter old woman. You don't deserve that money. You don't deserve anything. Maybe not. I agreed. But neither do you. They were arrested on charges of attempted murder, conspiracy, and elder abuse. The evidence was overwhelming. Patricia had recorded their confessions at dinner, caught on hidden cameras and microphones throughout the house. The police found more evidence. Internet searches on David's computer about brake lines and poisons. Texts between Susan and Michael discussing the plan. Bank statements showing they'd already spent money they didn't have, expecting their inheritance to come through soon. The trial lasted 3 months. I testified against my own children, looking them in the eye as I described every attempt on my life. The jury took less than 4 hours to convict them. David got 20 years. Susan got 18. Michael got 22. I sat in the courtroom and watched my children, the babies I'd rocked to sleep, the toddlers whose tears I'd dried, the teenagers I defended against the world being led away in chains, and I felt nothing but emptiness. The lottery money, what was left of it after their initial demands, went exactly where I'd planned. The orphanage received $10 million. The local food bank got $3 million. Organizations supporting elder abuse victims received another $2 million. I kept just enough to fix my house, take care of my medical needs, and live comfortably for whatever years I have left. I'm back in my little house now, the one with the worn recliner and the creaky stairs. Mr. Whiskers is still by my side, a bit grayer but still purring. The roof is fixed. The stairs have new carpeting, but otherwise, everything is much the same as it was before that Tuesday morning when my numbers came up. Except for one thing, I know who my children really are. People sometimes ask me if I regret winning the lottery. The truth is, I don't. The money didn't corrupt my children. Their corruption was always there, just waiting for an opportunity to show itself. The lottery was just a mirror, reflecting their true natures back at me. Would I rather have lived my whole life not knowing, believing my children loved me when they were really just waiting for me to die? No, the truth hurts. God, how it hurts. Some mornings I wake up and forget, just for a moment, and I think about calling David to tell him something funny I saw, or Susan to ask about Emma's classes, or Michael to see if he wants to come over for dinner. Then I remember, and the grief crashes over me again, fresh as the day they were sentenced. But I'd rather live with painful truth than comforting lies. I volunteer at the orphanage now, 3 days a week. I read stories to the children, help with homework, bake cookies for birthdays. These kids have been abandoned, betrayed, hurt by the people who were supposed to love them. Just like me, maybe that's why I feel at home there. We're all survivors of family. Last week, a little girl named Sophie climbed into my lap during story time. She's 7, with tangled hair and wary eyes, and she's been in the system since she was 4. Her mother chose drugs over her. Her father was never in the picture. "Ms. Maggie," she whispered, "will you be my grandma?" My eyes filled with tears. "Oh, sweetheart, I'd be honored. She's not my blood. Neither are any of the children at the orphanage. But they smile when they see me. They run to me with their little achievements and their scraped knees. They love me not for what I can give them, but for who I am. That's what real family is supposed to be." I still buy a lottery ticket every Tuesday. Same numbers, 0714-2331-4-09, my wedding anniversary, my children's birthdays, and the number of the house where I grew up. But now those numbers mean something different. They're not symbols of the family I raised. They're reminders of the family I lost, and the lessons I learned in blood and betrayal and bitter truth. If I ever win again, and what are the chances of that? I know exactly what I'll do. I'll give it all away. Because the only fortune worth having is one that's measured in genuine love, not in dollars. And that's something no lottery can ever buy. My name is Margaret Bennett. I won $20 million in the lottery. My children tried to kill me for it. And in losing them, I finally learned what it means to be rich, not in money, but in truth, in freedom, and in the quiet dignity of surviving the people who were supposed to protect you. I'm 73 years old. My children are in prison. My money is gone, and I've never been happier.